In the quiet hills of upstate New York, where the autumn leaves whispered secrets to the wind, stood a grand mansion. Its stone walls rose high, wrapped in ivy that clung like old memories. This was the home of Alexander Harrington, a millionaire whose fortune came from building tech empires. But inside those walls, wealth couldn't buy peace. Alexander's little daughter, Emily, was a storm in a small body. At 7 years old, she had driven away every maid they'd hired. Screams echoed through the halls, toys flew like missiles, and no one could last more than a week. One crisp morning, as the sun painted the sky in soft pinks, another maid stormed out. "I can't take it anymore," she cried, her apron crumpled in her fists. Alexander watched from the doorway, his face lined with worry. This was the 5th one this year. Emily peeked from behind a curtain, her blue eyes wide but unreadable. What was the impossible task? Taming a heart that seemed unbreakable. Alexander Harrington had built his life on logic and deals. Tall and sharp-featured, with salt and pepper hair, he ran his company from a home office overlooking manicured gardens. But since his wife, Laura, passed away 2 years ago in a sudden car accident, everything changed. Laura had been the gentle anchor, the one who could soothe Emily's wild spirit. Now, Emily was a puzzle he couldn't solve. She rarely spoke, threw tantrums over the smallest things, and hid in corners for hours. Doctors called it grief mixed with something deeper, or perhaps anxiety or a touch of the spectrum, but labels didn't help. Alexander loved her fiercely, but his long work hours left him relying on help that never stayed. The agency sent resumes like clockwork. Experienced nanny, patient caregiver, none worked. One maid quit after Emily dumped paint on her dress. Another left when Emily locked herself in the bathroom for a full day. Alexander felt the weight pressing on his chest, a quiet ache that grew with each failure. He wanted Emily to laugh again, to play without rage bubbling up. But how? He paced the study that evening, the fireplace crackling softly, casting shadows that danced like forgotten dreams. The next day brought Sarah Jenkins. She arrived at the wrought iron gates in a simple blue coat, her brown hair tied back in a ponytail. At 32, Sarah had a calm face, with freckles across her nose and eyes that held a quiet strength. Born in a small Ohio town, she'd worked as teacher before switching to caregiving. Life had taught her patience. Her own brother had struggled with similar storms as a child. Alexander greeted her at the door, his voice tired but hopeful. "Emily's challenging," he said, leading her inside. The mansion smelled of polished wood and faint lavender from the gardens. Sarah nodded, her smile steady. "I've handled challenging before, Mr. Harrington. Let's see what we can do." Emily waited in the playroom, a vast space filled with toys, books, and a window seat overlooking the woods. She sat cross-legged on the rug, stacking blocks into a wobbly tower. When Sarah entered, Emily glanced up, her small hands pausing. "Hello, Emily," Sarah said softly, kneeling to her level. "I'm Sarah. What's your tower for?" Emily said nothing. She knocked the blocks down with a swipe, scattering them like fallen leaves. Alexander watched from the doorway, his heart sinking. "Another one bites the dust," he thought, but Sarah didn't flinch. She picked up a block and placed it gently. "Maybe we can build a castle together." Castles are strong. The first day passed in slow tension. Emily ignored meals, pushing her plate away until peas rolled across the floor. Sarah cleaned them up without a word, humming a soft tune her mother had taught her. At nap time, Emily refused the bed, curling under a table instead. Sarah sat nearby, reading a picture book aloud, her voice like a gentle stream. "Once upon a time, there was a little fox who hid in the woods." Emily peeked out once, but quickly hid again. That night, as the moon hung low over the hills, Alexander found Sarah in the kitchen, sipping tea. "How was it?" he asked, leaning against the counter. "Tough," she admitted, her eyes meeting his. "But she's not mean." "She's scared." "Lost, maybe." Alexander sighed, rubbing his temples. "I know, since her mom. It's been hard." "I try, but work pulls me away." Sarah nodded. "Give it time, Mr. Harrington." Rome wasn't built in a day. The days blurred into a rhythm, slow and deliberate. Mornings started with breakfast in the sunlit kitchen, where Sarah sliced apples into smiles. Emily would stare, then nibble one edge. Afternoons meant walks in the garden, crunching leaves underfoot. Sarah pointed out birds, naming them softly: a robin, sparrow, blue jay. Emily followed at a distance, her small boots kicking stones. Tension simmered like a pot on low heat. One afternoon, Emily threw a fit over a tangled shoelace, screaming until her face turned red. Previous maids would scold or quit. Sarah knelt, waiting for the storm to pass. "It's okay to be mad," she whispered, "but let's untangle it together." Emily stopped, breathing hard, and let Sarah help. Yet doubts crept in. Alexander overheard whispers from Stoffith the cook, shaking her head, the gardener muttering about that wild child. He worried Sarah would leave too. Evenings, he'd check on Emily, finding her asleep with tear-streaked cheeks. "What am I doing wrong?" he'd murmur to the empty room. Sarah noticed the patterns. Emily loved drawing, scribbling fiercely on paper with crayons, but she hid them, stuffing sheets under her bed. One quiet afternoon, while Emily napped, Sarah found only a chaotic swirl of colors, blues and greens like a stormy sea, with a tiny figure in the middle. It tugged at her heart. That evening, she bought art supplies from Tona: fresh paper, watercolors, brushes soft as feathers. The turning point came on a rainy Thursday. Thunder rumbled outside, mirroring the unrest inside. Emily refused to come downstairs, barricading her door with pillows. Alexander was in a meeting, his voice muffled through the walls. Sarah knocked gently. "Emily, it's raining cats and dogs out there. Want to make our own storm inside?" No answer. Sarah sat against the door, pulling out the art supplies. "I found your drawing. It's beautiful, like an ocean adventure." She slid a blank paper under the door, along with crayons. Minutes ticked by, slow as molasses. Then, a small hand pushed back a drawing, the waves crashing, but now with two figures holding hands. Sarah's breath caught. This was progress, fragile as glass. She opened the door slowly. Emily sat there, eyes downcast. "Who's the other one?" Sarah asked softly. Emily whispered, her first words to Sarah, "Mommy." But she's gone. The air hung heavy, rain pattering against the windows like tears. Sarah sat beside her. "I bet she loved drawing with you." Emily nodded, a single tear falling. "She did. But now, everyone's mad at me." "Not me," Sarah said. "I'm here." From there, the bond grew like vines reaching for sun. Sarah introduced art time each day, sitting side by side. Emily's pictures told stories of lonely girls in big houses, then friends appearing in bright colors. Tension eased, replaced by quiet laughs. One evening, Emily hugged Sarah's leg. "Don't go," she murmured. Alexander noticed the change. Coming home early one day, he found them in the garden, painting leaves with watercolors. Emily's face lit up. "Daddy, look." Sarah showed me how to make rainbows. His eyes misted. "That's wonderful, sweetie." But the gentle twist came unexpectedly. During a family dinner, the first calm one in months, Emily shared a secret. "I hear things," she said, poking at her pasta, "like Mommy's voice in the wind. It makes me mad when others don't listen." Alexander froze. Sarah leaned in. "What does she say?" "Be brave." "But I'm scared without her." Sarah exchanged a glance with Alexander. This was the impossible, not just taming tantrums, but unlocking a child's hidden world. Emily wasn't unruly for no reason. She carried grief like a heavy backpack, imagining connections to her lost mother. Previous maids pushed routines. Sarah listened, turning imagination into healing. Weeks passed in peaceful flow. Mornings now held giggles over oatmeal. Afternoons, stories by the fire. Emily spoke more, her voice a soft melody. Alexander cut back hours, joining art sessions. The mansion felt warmer, ivy outside seeming less clinging, more embracing. One golden autumn evening, as leaves swirled in the breeze, Alexander pulled Sarah aside. "You've done what no one could." "How?" Sarah smiled. "I didn't do the impossible alone. Emily did, by trusting." "We all just needed to slow down and see her." Emily ran up, holding a drawing of a family of 3, with Laura as a watching star. "For you, Sarah." "And Daddy." Tears welled in Alexander's eyes. "Thank you," he said, hugging them both. In the end, the mansion stood as before, but its heart beat steadier. Emily bloomed, her storms now just passing clouds. Sarah stayed, not as a maid, but as family. Alexander learned that wealth buys time, but love builds bridges. And so, in the quiet hills, They found peace. Remember, dear listener, sometimes the impossible is just a whisper away. Listen closely, and you might hear it too. Take a moment today to reach out to someone who's hiding their storm. You could be the calm they need.